Chapter 12 Ethics and the Law. Good day, everyone. We are the last reporters of our subject, Pricing Strategy. I am Francina Levado, together with my group mates, Russell Sarkal, Rika Braga, and Jane Neri. In this chapter, we are going to discuss the constraints on pricing. Basically, we are going to talk about the legality of such pricing strategies. In other words, we are going to assess if a particular pricing strategy is illegal or not.
So, understanding the constraints on pricing. When making pricing decisions, the successful strategist must consider not only what is profitable but also what will be perceived as ethical and legal. Unfortunately, good advice on both of these issues is all too often unavailable or misleading. Attorneys who do not specialize in antitrust law tend to be overly conservative, advising against activities that are only sometimes illegal or that could trigger an investigation. So, ethical constraint on pricing. So, first, let's define ethical constraint on pricing. Ethical constraint on pricing are the principles that guide how a company sets prices for its product or services. Dito yung transparency, fairness, yung honesty, yung discrimination, non-discrimination, respect, and etc. So, ethical constraint on pricing, ito daw yung nagiging guardian sa pricing. So, ito yung pagpa-price ng tama at katanggap-tanggap dun sa isang product or sa isang services. So, hindi po kasi pwedeng mag-price or hindi po kasi pwedeng mag-price na parang mas mataas yung price kesa dun sa benefit na nakukuha ng isang customer sa isang product or services. Parang tinatawag natin siyang unethical. And also, hindi rin pwedeng magkaroon ng discrimination sa pricing. Halimbawa, say for example, yung product ko, ibebenta ko sa group A na mataas, tapos pagdating sa group B, mababa siya. So, hindi siya unethical siya. So, ayan. So, perhaps no other area of managerial activity is more difficult to depict accurately, assess fairly, and prescribe realistically in terms of morality than the domain price. This often quoted assessment reflects the exceptional divergence of ethical opinions with respect to pricing. Even among writers sympathetic to the need for profit, some consider it unethical to charge different prices unless they reflect difference in cost. Ayun, so while others consider pricing unethical unless prices are set equal or proportional to the benefit received. So, consequently, there is less written on ethics in pricing than on other marketing issues. And what is written tends to focus on the easy issues like deception and price fixing. The tougher issues involve strategies and tactics for gaining profit. Many people, including many in business practice and education, believe that there are legitimate ethical constraints on maximizing profit pricing. It is important to clarify your own and your customers' understanding of those standards before ambiguous situations arise. The topology of ethical constraint in pricing illustrated in Exhibit 12 to 1 is a good place to start. So, yung sa table po natin sa Exhibit 12 to 1. So, under that, meron dyang mga table. Andyan po makikita nyo po yung table ng ating levels 1 to 5. Yung mga ethical levels natin. So, on the level 1, it embodied in all well-functioning competitive market economies. So, it requires that all transactions be at least voluntarily. The legal principle of caveat emptor, let the buyer be aware, is characterized nearly all economic transaction in the United States prior to the 20th century. In such a market, people often make regrettable purchase. Okay, so for example, expensive brand name watches that turned out to be cheap substitute or stock in overvalued companies. On the other hand, without the high legal cost associated meeting licensing, branding, and disclosure requirements, new business opportunities abound even for the poor, making unemployment negligible. So, sa ethical level 2 naman, it imposes a more restrictive standard, condemning even voluntary transaction by those who would profit from equal information about the exchange. Um, for example, selling a used car without disclosing a known defect, concealing a known risk of using a product, or mispresenting the benefits achievable from a product are prime example of transaction that would be condemned by this ethical criterion. So under this, ito daw yung minsan yung sinabi nga po dito sa example na kapag nagbebenta ng car na hindi sinasabi yung mga depict or yung mga issue nung car or yung mga sira. So, dito papasok siya sa ethical level 2. Since sellers naturally know more about the features and benefits of product than most consumers do, they may have an ethical duty to disclose what they know completely and accurately. So, syempre, ikaw yung seller, ikaw yung mas nakakaalam nung binibenta mo, dapat sinasabi mo, halimbawa dun sa car, sinasabi mo na, ay ma'am sir, ito po yung ano lang niya, yung error niya. Kasi, ikaw yung mas nakakaalam nung product mo o yung binibenta mo. So, ang ethical level 3 imposes a still more stringent criterion that sellers earn no more than a fair profit from sales of necessities for which buyers have only limited alternatives. And the next one is ethical level 4. It extends the criteria of ethical in the level 3 to all products. Even those with many substitute and not usually thought as a necessities, profit is morally justifiable only when is the new minimum necessarily to induce companies or individuals to make decisions for the good of less advantaged member of society. Profit is ethically justifiable only as the price society must pay to induce suppliers of capital and skills to improve the well-being of those less fortunate. Profit from exploiting unique skills, great ideas, or exceptional efficiency are called economic rents, are morally suspect in this scenario unless it can be shown that everyone or at least the most needy benefits from allowing such profits to be earned, such as while a high profit company nevertheless offer lower prices and better working conditions than its competitors. So, ethical level 5, the most extreme constraint is inconsistent with market. In some primitive societies, everyone is obliged to share good fortune with those in the tribe who are less fortunate, from each according to his ability to each according to his need, is the espoused ethical premise of Marxist societies and even some respected moral philosophers, those that have actually tried to put it into praise. So, for each level of ethical constraint on economic exchange, one must determine the losses and gains for both individuals and societies that will result from the restriction. In assessing the standard that friends, business associates, and political representatives apply, manager must ask themselves if their personal standard are the same for their business as well as for their personal conduct. Although we certainly have our own beliefs about which of these ethical levels is practical and dismirable in dealing with others would apply different standard in different contexts. We feel that neither we nor the people who claim to be expert on business ethics are qualified to make these decisions for some else. Each individual must make his or her own decisions and live with the personal and social consequences, regardless of one's personal ethical belief about pricing. It would be foolish to ignore the legal constraint on pricing. So, ethical pricing is important because it can help businesses earn a profit while also being respected by consumers and competitors.
So let's proceed to the legal framework for pricing. When making pricing decisions, the strategist must consider not only what is profitable but also what is lawful. Since the late 19th century, the United States has been committed to maintaining price competition through establishing and enforcing antitrust policy. Statutes, regulations, and guidelines, as well as countless judicial decisions, have defined what constitutes anti-competitive pricing behavior and the rules under which the government and private parties may pursue those who engage in it. This section discusses key aspects of the law regarding pricing, focusing primarily on that of general applicability in the United States at the federal level. Due to its long history disability, the pricing area has served as a model for other parts of the world, including the European Union and Japan. So, to explain further, the legal framework for pricing refers to the set of laws and regulations designed to ensure that pricing practices are fair, transparent, and do not harm consumers or competition. In the context of ethics and law in pricing strategy, this framework addresses several key areas, such as anti-competitive practices, predatory pricing, price discrimination, deceptive pricing, minimum advertised price, agreements, and ethical considerations. So, with regards to the slides that I read, this statement explains the legal principles behind pricing decisions, focusing on antitrust laws that prevent unfair competition. So, so to simplify it, profitability versus legality. When setting prices, businesses must think not just about making money but also about following the law. Second, the antitrust laws in the US. Since the late 1800s, the US has enforced law to promote fair competition and prevent practices that harm it, like price fixing or monopolies. These laws include detailed rules, court decisions, and guidelines to clarify what behavior is legal. And for the global influence, US antitrust laws have served as a model for other regions such as the European Union. For example, the EU used to prohibit certain restrictions on how products were sold across borders. Later, they changed the rules to allow companies some control over how their products are resold as long as it doesn't harm competition. So, in short, laws ensure that businesses compete fairly, and these principles have influenced legal frameworks worldwide.
Now, let's move on discussing what is price fixing or price encouragement. So, ano nga ba ang price fixing or tinatawag rin nating price encouragement? So, first of all, price fixing is an agreement between competitors either to raise, to lower, or to maintain a certain price in the market. In some cases, especially in United States, in Canada, and even in Philippines, this kind of pricing technique is very illegal. So, dahil it is anti-competitive, maliban doon, it burdens the customer and also, at some point, other businesses. Especially if nagkakaroon ng pagkakampi-kampihan ang isang industry or isang set or groups of businesses. So, it's either easier and more profitable for producers to have this kind of set price. And mostly in Philippines, price fixing is punishable by fine and imprisonment. So, this price fixing can be written, whether through verbal or inferred from conduct. And it can also include other terms of trade na pwede makaapekto sa price na tatanggap ng mga consumers, such as delivery fees, discount programs, and installment interest rates. So, ang price fixing is meron siyang two types, which is the horizontal and the vertical. Pagdating sa horizontal, it is a agreement between competitors kung saan yung prices is magkakaroon silang charge or key terms in terms of selling price or sales affecting price. Meaning to say, pagdating sa horizontal price fixing, ang naapektuhan nito directly is the presyo na binibili ng mga consumer. While in vertical price fixing, a supplier and the reseller agree on price. The reseller will charge or this price-related terms of resale for suppliers' products. So, pagdating naman sa vertical price fixing, nagkakaroon ng set price which is illegally done to affect hindi yung consumer kundi yung mga suppliers itself. Now, why is price fixing considered na illegal? So, ito yung dahilan. Generally, the antitrust laws require that each company establish price and other competitive terms on its own without agreeing with the competitor. Since ang nature nga ng industry is a competitive market, the legislative or the law of a country prohibit na magkaroon ng agreement between competitors. Although there's unity, but in terms of the market, it's important na maprotektahan yung rights ng mga consumer to have options in terms of buying. Siyempre, may mga tao na hindi kayang bumili ng certain product due to high price. Now, if there's a price fixing or price encouragement, it would violate the rights of the consumer to have access or rights to choose. So, paano ba nagkakaroon ng price fixing or price encouragement? So, based dito sa sa PPT, meron ditong illustration on how it can happen. So, this pictures illustrated na may mga several business na nag-offer ng pare-parehong product or services at a competitive price. But when there's an agreement to fix a selling price, yung mga price na either 350, tas doon sa isa man 420, yung isa man 475, if they are encouraged to make an illegal price fixing, they would set a price that both of the competitors can get a higher revenue. And dahil dun sa pagset nila ng certain price, for example, 500 pesos for a kilo ng karne or something, it would result to artificially high price. So, meaning to say, hindi naman talaga yung original na price na pwedeng makuha yung isang product. Pero dahil sa agreement ng mga competitors, it would set an illusion for consumer na ito lang yung option nila para makabili ng ganitong needs. So, that would be artificially high prices. And in return, syempre, the end user or the consumer will have to pay it, especially if the businesses who set a price fixing are the one who provide the daily needs, especially sa hygiene, sa foods, sa clothing or anything, etc. So, this is the price fixing or price encouragement.
Resale price fixing or price encouragement. This topic is actually almost similar to the previous topic, but in this topic, we are going to discuss furthermore the differences of the two because these two might have similarities, but they actually have significant differences to each other. And later on, we are going to talk about that. Vertical price fixing. This is actually already have defined it by the last reporter, but to recall, the definition of vertical price fixing is an illegal agreement between companies at different levels of the supply chain to set or fix prices for a product. Tulad ng sinabi ni Ate Jane kanina, nagkakasunduan or nagkakampihan ang mga competitors sa pag-set ng price para, sabi dito, ang purpose is to limit competition and increase profits by eliminating the incentive to compete on price. In result, sabi nga ni Ate Jane kanina, nawawalan ng choice ang mga customers or consumers na bilhin yung product or service sa mataas na presyo na sinet ng competitors. An example is a manufacturer may demand that distributors not sell their product below a certain price. And another highlight for this topic is according to the book, there was a historical shift. Sabi, Supreme Court cases have changed the way resale price fixing is judged, moving from being automatically illegal to being considered on a case-by-case basis. So, meaning, dati, automatically illegal ang price fixing. Pero as the time goes by, meron ng considerations na ginagawa because of some reasons. And this is supported actually by a law which we will be discussing next. Ang law na nagsusupport sa pag-consider na pwede ang price fixing is the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, also interpreted as the Rule of Reason. It was created to prevent unfair competition by breaking up monopolies and cartels. However, there are some limited circumstances where price fixing is permitted. For example, joint ventures may allow for better pricing or more competition. So, as long as it is not unfair, it is permitted depending on the reason. So, manufacturers often use these policies to support brand image and ensure sufficient reseller margins, which can also protect them from price competition. However, para safe, any form of agreement on resale prices must be avoided to stay within legal boundaries. Direct dealing programs. Another way to control the prices charged to end users is for the supplier to sell them directly or constructively by the use of agents. When the supplier agrees with the end user on price, but the latter cannot handle delivery of large quantities or maintain sufficient inventory to justify direct shipments from the supplier, may ilang suppliers na naghahanap ng reseller to fill the order out of the reseller's warehouse. When the supplier has negotiated the price to the end user, but the reseller has or retained the title, the supplier has another alternative. Under the reseller's choice approach, the reseller may either choose to sell the product to the end user at the price set by the supplier, or refuse to do so. Even if the reseller agrees to sell at the contracted price, there is no per se illegal price fixing, as this practice is subject to the rule of reason. Meaning, this may be a form of price fixing, but it is considered a legal type of practice because it is, again, subject to the rule of reason. Now, diving in to the resale price encouragement. So, ano nga ba ang pinagkaiba nito sa price fixing? So, instead of dictating a resale price by agreement, policy, or direct sale, some suppliers encourage desirable resale pricing behavior by providing financial or other incentives. So, this is an alternative for price fixing. So, there are two ways that we can do. First one is the minimum advertised price or MAP program. Under this approach, the reseller receives an advertising allowance, often in the form of co-op advertising funds, in return for adhering to the appropriate price and advertising in a catalog or over the internet. Resellers that wish pricing freedom may decline to be in the ad, and because of the voluntary nature of this approach, there is no per se illegality. Another way of doing resale price encouragement is target price rebates. Here, the supplier rewards the reseller with financial incentives that vary depending upon how close the retailer's resale prices are to the target set by the supplier. This practice requires point of sale or POS reporting, typically easier to get in the consumer area due to the widespread use of scanners, but becoming more common in the industrial marketplace. Overall, the key definition is providing financial or other incentives. Moving on to the next topic, price and promotional discrimination. First, let us define what is price discrimination. According to the law of United States, under the Robinson-Patman Act of 1936, this law aims to protect competition by maintaining numerous sellers and preventing large businesses from engaging in price discrimination that harms small businesses. The Robinson-Patman Act makes it illegal for businesses to offer different prices and promotional allowances to different customers, unless justified by cost savings, to meet competitors' prices, or due to changing conditions like perishable goods. In short, ito ay tumutukoy sa pag-set ng price rates sa iba't ibang type ng customers ng iba't ibang amount ng presyo. Then, we have to keep in mind that discrimination in price is not always unlawful. In order to prove illegal price discrimination under the Robinson-Patman Act, and assuming that the supplier sells in interstate commerce, each of these five elements must be present. The discrimination, sales to two or more purchasers, goods like grade and quality, and reasonable probability of competitive injury. For the promotional discrimination, as was the case with price discrimination, each of several elements must be present to violate the law. First is the provision of allowances, services, or facilities. Second, in connection with the resale of the supplier's goods. And last, not available to all competing customers on proportionally equal terms. Competitive injury, defenses, and indirect purchasers. There also are other, somewhat less attractive differences between price and promotional discrimination. Una, the competitive injury is necessary for illegal promotional discrimination, making it more like a per se rule. Pangalawa, meeting competition is the only defense as cost justification and changing conditions are irrelevant. Third, if the supplier provides promotional allowances to direct buying resellers, it must also furnish them to competitive resellers that buy the promoted product through intermediaries. something that may be accomplished with ultimate reseller rebates or mandatory pass-throughs.
Using non-price variables to support pricing goals. So, vertical non-price restriction. Vertical non-price restriction are the agreements that limit the types of customers a retailer can sell to or the territories they can sell in. This restriction can be illegal if they negatively impact competition in the market as a whole. So, broadly speaking, there are three types of vertical non-price restraints, each subject to the rule of reasons. So, first, customer restriction. Rather than selling to any customer, the seller is restricted only to particular customers or is prohibited from selling to certain customers. For example, in the industrial area, the reseller could be required to sell only to plumbing contractors or to stay away from accounts that are reserved to the supplier or another reseller rather. On the consumer side, the reseller could be limited to customers who order over the internet or prohibited from selling to such customers at all. The second one is territorial restrictions. Although generally designed to prevent or discourage selling outside of a geographic area, this can also be thought of as a market restriction. An exclusive distributorship, take note on that, is actually a restraint on the supplier, as it agrees that particular reseller will be exclusive outlet in the latter's territory or the market for some of all suppliers' products. When the reseller is required to sell inside only a particular territory or market, it is subject to called absolute confinement. By combining an exclusive distributorship with absolute confinement, the result is known as an airtight territory. Okay, airtight territory po siya. In other words, if a supplier promises a dealer that the latter will be the only outlet in a region for a particular product, it has granted an exclusive distributorship. If the dealer is limited to selling in that state, there is absolutely confinement, and when it's combined with an exclusive distributorship, the reseller has an airtight territory. Due to some flip-flopping on the part of Supreme Court, vertical non-price restriction were per se illegal from 1968 until the Sylvania decision in 1977. In response of a number so-called lesser restraint, we established that may not be as helpful on pricing as other restriction, but still can be useful. So the first, this is an area of primary responsibility. It permits sales outside a reseller's territory, but expect the reseller to focus its efforts on its designated geographic area. Next one is profit passover. It allows the reseller to sell anywhere, but to neutralize the free rider effect, the reseller must split revenue or profit for sales outside its territory with the reseller in the area encroach upon. The last one is location clause that restricts the resellers to approve sites only. While this last approach is ineffective if sales are made over the internet or by phone, it can be useful while a physical presence in the territory is necessary, especially in an environment where resellers are consolidating. So that is the lesser restraints, three restraints. So for the last is the product restriction. So yung product restriction is suppliers have no legal obligation to sell their reseller or end user customer and any of their product except in two instances when the supplier has a contact to do or in the relatively rare situation when the suppliers is a monopolist with excess capacity. So in other words, the supplier may generally determine what product, if any, it sells to its resellers or direct buying end users customers, something that can be referred to as designated product. In this way, it may limit intra-brand competition or other conflict by restricting what can be purchased by whom. So, non-price incentives to motivate desired behavior, a supplier may provide a favored resellers or end users with certain non-price benefits, such as first access to new product or enhanced technical support.
Next is the other pricing issues. So, maliban sa mga na-discuss na pricing issues before, there are other pricing issues that may arise in a market. First is the predatory pricing, and second is the price signaling. So, dito muna tayo sa predatory pricing. So, ano nga ba ang predatory pricing? So, ang predatory pricing scheme is pagsiset ng unrealistic low na price in order to eliminate yung mga competitors at makapag-create ang isang business ng monopoly, which is considered, of course, illegal for some industry. So, consumers benefit from lower prices in the short term but are in disadvantage in long term. So, syempre, there are times na masasabi nating predatory pricing ang ginagawa ng isang market or isang business if nag-set sila ng mababang presyo in short term. Let's say, for 2 months, nagbaba sila ng napakalaking range ng deduction sa kanilang price in order to gain more customer. Pero ang backlash naman nun na magiging sign sa isang business para ma-labeled sila na nagpa-price sila ng predatory type of pricing is in the following years or following months, biglang tumaas ng sobra-sobra yung price nila sa certain product. So, dito, nagkakaroon ng disadvantage ang mga consumer kasi they would have to pay at that high price, especially if they are been caught in a monopoly type of industry. So, ngayon, bakit nga ba tinatawag na illegal ang ganitong klase ng pricing? So, ang dahilan is, if it is successfully made, yun nga, nakaka-create siya ng monopoly and it would eliminate also the rights of consumers to have a free choice. So, paano ito nangyayari? So, dumping. May tinatawag na dumping style ng predatory pricing kung saan dinodominate ng mga business yung mga foreign market. So, typically, business that create dumping sell their products in a foreign market for cheaper than they can at home. So, syempre, may mga kind ng businesses, for example, diba sa mga Shopee or mga international kind of products or services, they offer it in a economy na hindi pa ganun ka develop. Let's say, for example, in UK to Philippines, may mga sinasend out silang brands or products or services dito sa Pilipinas na when converted into peso, they can set a very cheap price in order to garner the Filipinos. Kasi normally, kung ano yung mga brand na homemade or Filipinade, they are typically the one with higher price. Syempre, the conversion of the cost is nanggaling in peso. But if the cost is from dollars or other currency, pag transfer mo siya into peso, they are considered to be lower cost for that businesses. Kaya nga, mas madaming predator business dito sa Pilipinas kasi nga, if the foreign country establish a business here in the Philippines, mas nag-enjoy sila kasi konti lang yung kanilang nasa-sacrifice na finance in order to successfully gain sales from the market. So, yun yung nagiging isang issue rin pagdating dito sa ating bansa, which is predatory pricing. Kaya ang mga government natin is nagsaset ng limit pagdating sa mga entries of foreign businesses. So, bakit ginagawa itong predatory pricing? It is to drive out businesses or competitors in the market. And pwede rin para ma-reduce yung competition sa isang market. Dahil nakaka-cater ng madaming customer yung mga businesses na nag-set ng lower price, syempre, yung mga competitors, they would try to match that pricing strategy. Pero dahil hindi angkop sa kanilang businesses, it's either they will lose revenue or they would be in too much debt. And in return, magdi-disappear yung kanilang businesses. So, it would eliminate the competition. So, in long-term aggressive pricing that is below marginal cost, it can attack as a monopolization or attempt para mag-monopolize. And under Section 2 of Sherman Act by the FTC, under Section 5 of FTC Act, pinagbabawal yung predatory pricing. Pero pagdating sa 1993, the Supreme Court, sinabi niya na hindi pwedeng i-label ang isang business agad na gumagamit ng predatory pricing if they don't meet the certain condition, which is pag-set ng lower price and pagkakaroon ng mataas na price later on. So, this would severely limits claims of predatory and favors the presumption of price cutting as pro-competitive. So, next is the other price issues, which is the price signaling. So, ano nga bang price signaling? A price signal is a change of a price of goods or service which indicates that the supply or demand should be adjusted. So, normally, pag price signaling, this is the attempt of the businesses or certain industry na spoil privately ang list ng kanilang price pagdating sa kanilang mga services or products, which is illegal because pagkakaroon ng transparency sa price should be done not privately but in public, especially toward the consumers. So, bakit ito kino-consider na illegal is because it informs firms of others' intentions to change price and allow them to respond accordingly. So, it is illegal for companies to collude in price. Hindi pwedeng sarilihin ng mga businesses yung information pagdating sa kanilang price list. Kasi dito nag-arise yung possibilities magkaroon ng price encouragement or price fixing. And it would be unfair pagdating sa mga consumers kasi hindi magiging transparent yung business sa kanila kung talaga bang yung presyo na yun is reasonable or just for the sake of gaining revenue over the competitors. So, for example, sabihin natin may shortage ng orange and yung price ay kailangan mag-increase. So, ang signaling dun is nangyayari when the price of, sabihin natin, higher yung price ng orange. Normally, ang price signaling nangyayari sa consumer in effect of either increasing their consumption or lowering their consumption. So, doon nagkakaroon ng after effect ang isang price signaling. So, ang price signaling is practice of a supplier communicating its future pricing intention to its competitor. So, pagdating doon, ibig sabihin again is communicating between competitors and excluded ang consumer, which is in manufacturing industry is not acceptable. It is usually done to facilitate price parallelism through such means as supplying advance notice of price changes to customers or the media. So, ngayon, in Dunpont, the Court of Appeals overturned an FTC decision na yung ganitong behavior violates the antitrust laws, ruling that unconsciously parallel pricing is not unlawful unless it's collusive, predatory, coercive, or explosionary. So, yan yung mga condition para masabi na nagkakaroon ng price signaling. If it is collusive, predatory, coercive, or exclusionary. While signaling raises questions about the possibility of collusion, it can have legitimate business purpose as well. So, according to the Court of Appeals, signaling serves the lawful purpose of aiding business or buyers in their financial and purchasing planning. So, nagiging legal lang ang price signaling if it was done for the purpose of letting the consumers have plan in their purchase, hindi para encourage ang competitors to make or to take advantage of that information for their own sake. So, yun ang price signaling.